Russian boxer Maxim Dadashev died on Tuesday, 4 days after his IBF junior welterweight loss to Sibril Matthias in Maryland on Friday. Dadashev was placed in a medically induced coma moments after his trainer James Buddy McGirt stopped the fight in the 11th round. The Russian Boxing Federation has opened an investigation. The General Secretary of the Russian Boxing Federation, Umar Kremlev, is suggesting there was some kind of violation. He issued this statement. "We lost Maxim Dadashev. He was our young prospect. We will fully support his family, including financially. We will complete the investigation into the circumstances surrounding this fight. We need to know the truth about what happened. This happens in any sport. I think some human factors intervened. There was some kind of violation." Condolences poured in on Twitter. English boxing Edward Hearn, he had this to say. He said, "So terribly sad to hear the news of the passing of Maxim Dadashev. Rest in peace." And then we had another tweet from Terence Crawford. He said, "Wow, my heart heavy right now. I remember walking to the gas station with Maxim after he weighed in for one of his fights. Pray for his family to have strength in these tough times because he was a good dude. Rest in peace." Dadashev's death serves as a stark reminder of the dangers inherent in the sport of boxing. Well, joining us on set now is Mr. Stephen Bummer Jones. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we have to talk about this issue, boxing and injuries. It's a tough one. Today we heard about the Argentine boxer as well. What is your take on boxers, losing their lives to injuries in the sport?
One death is, as I say, one death is too much, but I mean, it is the nature of the sport, whether or not it's unfortunate or not. I mean, condolences out to his family, his friends, his boxing team, but any other boxers, not just Maxim, they put a lot of work into the sport, the craft. They've come up over the years. There are thousands of fights that happen each week. You know what I mean? There are thousands worldwide. And this is just the most unfortunate circumstance that can happen with any sport. But I mean, it is the nature of the sport, and there's never anything good that can come out of it, except a reawakening of where we are, what happens in the sport, the training. I mean, I can't speak much on what the Russian Federation was saying in terms of anything untoward. Totally, from everything I've seen, I totally don't think that there is anything that wouldn't have been in this day and age above board, because the medical staff at any fight, the officials at this level, they're top notch, and it's something that is constantly being reworked. It's something that research has been done at leading institutions. I know Cleveland Clinic does a lot in terms of what damages can be done from contact sport with the brain, and it's a constant ongoing thing. So it's just unfortunate, and to hear that another one has passed, But like I said, there are thousands of fights each week.
Yeah, I was saying at the top of the show, Bomber, that boxing is always under scrutiny on this issue because it is a brutal sport. But we have seen boxing associations and boxing federations over the decades try to implement measures and guidelines to ensure that the chances of things like these will be reduced. I know there are rules that if a boxer gets knocked out in a fight, he can't fight for like 30 days or 60 days. So those are some of the measures that they use. The referees are properly trained and know what to look for when a fighter becomes defenseless. Of course, there is medical attention at ringside to monitor a boxer's well-being. But boxers can get hurt in the ring, and it's not visible to anyone, neither the referee nor the medics, especially these tough boxers, because it's a fight game. To be a boxer, you have to have a lot of stomach for the fight game. So there are a lot of boxers who will be hurt and not show it.
And very true. And if you take this fight, for example, there were no signs. It was and you trained because he was 13-0, and he's getting to that point where he's recognized, and so the fact of the matter is that sometimes, if I were to have an opinion, I say, a lot of these boxers, because it is their career and because it is their way out, a sign of hope, everything that it does for you, sometimes they do overtrain. This is not just on the night, you know what I mean? A lot of them push themselves to that limit. I think this is in any high-level sport, you know what I mean? Sometimes you do find athletes that push themselves to that next level, you know what I mean? And I think this could have factors. So I don't think you can really tell what may have happened on that night. But as I said, there's so many boxers that want to get to, you know, they see that they have that opportunity to change their lives, to do many things, you know what I mean? And then so they may push themselves to a level that takes its toll on a night like that.
Well, Lance spoke about the rules. You being the president of the Jamaica Boxing Board, do you think enough is being done to protect our boxers regarding the rules?
Coming from where we're just looking at the history, you know, over the past 50 years, so much has changed, you know, in terms of how many fights a boxer has in 1 year. I mean, back in the day when you had George Foreman, for instance, when he turned pro, he fought, I think, 13 times in 1 year. You know, those things, and that was...
in those days, championship fights were 15-round fights. 15 rounds,
yeah. And you know, when you get to that level, but even before you get to the championship level, to build a record, you had boxers just fighting every month. You know, that and the rounds, like I said, coming down to 12, and most fights lead up to 10 rounds, and championship fights are 12. You know, there's a lot of rules that have been adjusted, a lot of what the ref looks for, like I said, the glove, the size of certain gloves. But I mean, I don't know what else they could do. Basically, like I said, it is the sport of boxing, and it has been looked at in and out, but the rules are there to protect the boxers first and foremost. I mean, back in the day, you couldn't always say that was the case, but where it is now, first and foremost, from before they get into the ring, right, the governing body is there for the protection of the boxers. You know what I mean? This is from the contracts, from the everything, you know what I mean, so that they can get to that level. So I mean, I do think that the best of the best are on every level, the medical and the officiating. Yeah.
Then this plays on the fact that, you know, when boxers are getting heated in a fight and people interrupt them, they continue because it's in their nature. They want to get the last blow. Do you think that has a part to play in it as well?
Well, at this level, no, because you go through the amateur program. Yeah. When you first come into the ring, you meet these boxers, you know, you have boxers that have a fighter's mentality. After learning the game, then you realize that it does become an art, and it does become a trained athlete. So if you are one that, if you're losing already, if the ref is breaking you, and then you're still getting heated, you know, because that means they've gotten into your head. You're supposed to be calm at all times and focused, and then do what you're supposed to do. You don't want to lose, you know. So only an amateur level, I think, would be on the amateur level where you have those that wouldn't be listening to the people in the ring. But at that level here, you're there for a purpose, and you train. You know, you train 8 weeks for a 10-round fight or whatever it is, you know what I mean, to get to that level.
Yeah, but Bomber, you know what's interesting, and this is not a good advert for boxing, which I probably shouldn't say because I'm a boxing man and I love this sport. But if you juxtapose what happens in boxing to what happens in football, where FIFA in the last couple of years has introduced new rules regarding concussion, any blow at all to a player's head, no matter how insignificant it may seem, but as long as there's an established blow to a footballer's head, the player has to be medically examined to ensure that there's no concussion. And I think if there is an establishment that there's a concussion, no matter how mild, you may miss football for 2 or 3 days. So that's just one blow to a head in one football match. Boxers get hit in their head 200 times in one boxing match.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said about the safety of boxing, which is hard to defend it.
But it's very difficult to defend it, but I can tell you the way I defend it, you know, and what we know now, we won't know 20, I mean, what we know 20 years time, you know, will be different than what we know now. But I mean, like I said, you're trained differently, you know. Football, you're not trained to get hit in the head directly, you know what I mean? Not saying it's not, you know, but I mean, really and truly how you're trained for boxing, but, you know, it is an art, it is a science, and 10 out of 10 boxers, you ask them if they would continue, because not everybody is created equal. I don't believe that. I believe everybody deserves equal opportunity, right? But the cloth that boxers made up of is different than the cloth that a footballer may be made up of. Or, I mean, I look on race car driving and I think to myself, oh, they've got to be kidding to drive 200 miles an hour. But to them, they're so totally focused. It's clarity to them, and they see the world slow. You know what I mean? It's a different cloth that you're made up of. So the boxers that are taking these hits, and, you know, they would have it takes one that's not made of that cloth to say, well, okay, That's why it's dangerous. But I mean, the boxing will always continue in terms of what the person that's in there and how trained they are.
Yeah, well, Bombers, thanks a lot for joining us here on the
Thank you very
SportsMax Zone.
much. I appreciate it.
A discussion that we have to continue having because, you know, ever so often we have situations of a boxing death, and it certainly hurts the sport for sure, and makes the detractors of boxing have a lot to say as well. We go to break. Back with more after this.